Moms for Liberty really worked miracles.
We have a crisis in America in public education. This is the future of our kids and our country.
You are joyful warriors.
And we are just getting started. Hello and welcome to the Fire of Liberty show. I'm Tina Deskovich, CEO and co-founder of Moms for Liberty. Each week we bring you moms and dads from the front line in America in this culture war that they are fighting. They've been forced to be activists at a time when they'd rather be home with their kids or doing their jobs. And today we have a really special guest for you. I'm excited. She is the OG. And whenever I use that term, people on social media it just puts the left there. Who do you think you are using OG? I didn't know it was like a pop culture term, but apparently it is. OG means original. And so today we have Jennifer Pippin. She is the chapter chair in Indian River County, Florida. She was one of the first two chapters of Moms for Liberty that launched on our first day of organizing. We had a joint meeting with the two chapters here in Brevard County, Florida, and Jennifer was there launching her chapter. And she is still the chapter chair. You know, some chapters have had turnover, 3, 4, 5 chapter chairs, but not Jennifer Pippin. She has been attacked. She's been threatened. She's been canceled. She has been all the things. And what I love about you most, Miss Pippin, is that you are a warrior and you don't slow down, you don't stop, you're mission focused. And as we titled this episode, you have earned yourself, your chapter, Moms for Liberty as a whole, a seat at every table. And so we are going to talk about that today. Welcome to the Fire of Liberty podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, so glad to have you here. And you didn't have to fly in.
No, I just drove up the road. It's beautiful. It's not 110 degrees out yet, so it's great.
Yeah, just for those watching across the country, right now, Florida is under, I've never seen them do this before, the heat index situation, but I think it's supposed to be 110 with the heat index today.
But it feels like it's crazy.
It's so unbelievably
I'm
hot.
born and raised in Florida, and this is the hottest it's ever been like that I can remember.
It's hilarious because I've lived here most of my life. And I always say I love 100 degrees and 100% humidity. It does not bother me a bit. I swear it's my happy place. But I too have been like, this is just a little too hot for me. And I thought it's because of my age. It's not. It's truly hot. So I want to talk about a seat at the table. Some people don't really know what that means. And so just in general, what does that mean to you? Because that's what we titled your episode. What does it mean to have a seat at the table?
So for me to have a seat at the table, you know, with our motto, having, you know, a seat at the table at all levels of government. So me, just a mom getting involved in this, I didn't even know that there was a school board, anything like that. I just thought the principal was the end all be all with the schools. And I realized like there's local government, there's state government, there's federal government, and they all play into, you know, what happens at the school level or with anything. So for me, having a seat at the table or having our membership having seats at the table is we have to have people everywhere. So you have to have people at committees. You have to have hard conversations with people who may not agree with you. You have to have them at the state level, at the, you know, federal level, and you have to be able to work together. So, you know, as a Moms for Liberty chapter chair, there's things that I can do that maybe school board members can't because of the sunshine laws and things like that here in Florida. So it's so important to be able to collaborate from, you know, federal, state, and local level. And it's not just, you know, your grassroots activists that have to be able to, you know, make the real change. It has to go all the way up through everything in government. And we've been able to do that in Indian River County in the state. And it's just been incredible.
I'd say you have. And so let's start with the local level, a seat at every table. What does that look like for your chapter?
Sure. So we sit on all the committees of the school. So calendar, I know it's kind of silly, but you know, you have to have people on the calendar, see when school is starting and
this
stopping.
Is the school district level.
The school district level. Yeah.
So let's back up for a second. You said a lot there. So let's back up.
Yeah.
You said, first of all, that you didn't know there was a school board.
I didn't. So during COVID, I know everybody hates talking about, oh, they're talking about COVID again. Well, that's what it happened, you know, seeing behind the education curtain for so many of us people who were just raising our families and working full time, right? I didn't know there was a school board. So when I complained to the principal, like, why are schools shut down? Like, what's going on? This doesn't make sense. They're like, oh, well, you have to go speak at a school board meeting because they're the ones that govern the schools. And I'm like, where's the school board? So I literally Googled and I said, where's the school board? Who's on the school board? If you would have given me $1 million, Tina, to tell you who was on the school board or how many men, how many women, I couldn't have done it. Like, I had no idea where the building was. I didn't know you could make public comment. I thought you just had to sit there and listen to what they had to say because they were in charge. Like, so this really did start out grassroots for me because I had never done anything like this before. I mean, schools shut down and they kept telling you 2 weeks to flatten the curve, 2 weeks to flatten. I'm like, this is crazy. This is the longest 2 weeks ever. This is crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, I have to do something, and I'm going to have to put $1 in your swear jar because I have to quote
No.
Okay.
You can't. Will they block us on YouTube?
Okay, so I won't
on...
say it. So literally, I looked at my husband and I said, babe, I have to do something. And he literally...
Wait, where was the cuss word in that?
Listen, his response is,
okay.
The S word.
Okay.
And that was like the beginning of my journey.
He probably knew your nature and your personality.
Right.
And if you said you were going to do something,
He
he's like,
knew.
I have no idea what's coming, but
He
it is
knew.
not going to be easy.
When my kids were out of school and, the
Yeah.
world shut down, so they were only doing like elective surgeries. So my husband and my work got cut big time. So
what do you do in your professional life?
So I'm a nurse. I'm an operating room nurse and
an OR nurse.
Yes. And
fascinating.
They were only doing elective surgeries at that time because it was a big deal.
And what did your husband do? Because you said he wasn't.
He's an orthopedic rep. So any hip replacements, knee replacements, anytime you break a bone, he's the guy in there telling the doctor how to do the surgery, what instruments to use, things like that.
So he's like, oh, crap. We're not going to say the bad word.
We won't say the bad word.
Jennifer has a little bit of time on her hands, and I.
Yeah.
And literally, she's mad about some things.
And he looked at me and he literally said that. And I had no idea what I was doing. We started going to the city councils, the county commissioners. We were going to meetings where they wouldn't even let us in the room. So we would literally order pizzas and Coke, and we would sit at a table and pass the phone around during citizen comment when they wouldn't let us in the room. And that's how it started, like, organically for us. And then it's just now mushroomed into knowing exactly when the school board meetings are and knowing, when you can make citizen comment, when they changed the policy to limit citizen comment and everything like that. I mean, it went from literally not knowing that there was even a school board to now just having people having seats on the school board. We have to.
Yeah, let's talk about some of these committees. So I pointed out the fact that you said you didn't even know there was a school board, because that's not uncommon. When you look at voter turnout, even in a general election, the school board is usually like the last, maybe it's above mosquito killer on your ballot. And people from around the country, yes, a mosquito killer, that's not what it's called, but mosquito control, I think it is here in Florida. Yeah. We actually have an elected position in some counties in Florida about mosquito control. They think it's a joke, but it's true. Slightly above that is your school board members. And often it's left blank because people don't know, or they pick the best name that they think, but they don't know who's on the school board. And I'll admit I served on the school board 2016 to 2020, but in the 2000, 2005, 6, 7, I also didn't know there was a school board, and I absolutely didn't know who was serving on it. So I don't think that's uncommon. And so let's just talk a little bit about these committees that you now have. Your chapter of Moms for Liberty members that believe in the parental rights mission, serving on practically every committee in the county. What are some of these committees? Calendar committee, you said.
Right.
And what's the calendar committee do?
So they look over to see when school starts, when there's going to be holidays, when school ends, spring break, in like hurricane days. So we have hurricane days in Florida, when those hurricane days would be, to not cut into like Thanksgiving break and things like that. So usually it's a group of educators and some district staff, but we also have parents on that committee.
Hold on. I don't know about your county. Who else is on that committee? And I'm going somewhere with this. Teachers?
Yeah, there's teachers. Oh, absolutely.
Is the union.
Of course.
So in my county, the union, because that's part of the union contract, like they made the decision, I would say, on a lot of those things. The school board gets the final vote, obviously, but the unions had a huge part in that discussion. And historically, at least in my county, there's no parents in that discussion. It's who's ever on the school board. And we know all across the country, school board members are often union members because they put in tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands in some places of dollars to get their members on the board. And so then you have these negotiations about just something as simple as the calendar, and guess who's dominated it forever? the unions. So
That's right.
so calendar committee, not that amazingly interesting and exciting, but it impacts every family in your county. When the
does.
schools are open or the schools are closed, it impacts traffic patterns, it impacts everything. And so you made sure someone in your chapter is sitting on that committee. What other
That's right.
committees?
So the curriculum committees, which is huge, people always say, oh, Moms for Liberty, they don't care about education. They don't care about the facts. They don't care about what's happening in schools. They hate teachers. We sit on the curriculum committees and we vet books alongside the educators. So my favorite thing is I've sat on the biology and the anatomy and physiology honors because that's my wheelhouse,
Because you're a
right?
nurse,
Yeah.
makes sense.
So I've sat with middle school educators and said, listen, what do you think about these? High school, what do you think about these? Reading these textbooks. I read 6 textbooks, about 200, 300 pages each in this last session, and just reviewed it and just, look, this isn't right or this is wrong. I sent it all the way up to the DOE. So we've had people sit on the math curriculum a couple years ago. Our former vice chair with Moms for Liberty, she found more errors in the math books, and this went to a national level, than the educators and the paid people. She was a volunteer at the state level. She was finding critical race theory. She was finding race baitings, all of these things. She found more, and she made more change at the state level with this curriculum than the paid people did at the DOE level.
I just want to thank you for that. As we said, I served on the school board here in Brevard for 4 years, and by state law, when the curriculum is coming up, you have to have 2 school board meetings. You know all this now, but most people don't. You have to open it up to the public. You have to announce we're going to adopt math curriculum next month. 2 school board meetings where I was chair. You had to hit the gavel and say, would anyone like to speak? And they can come off the floor. There's no pre-signing up. Would anyone like to speak about this curriculum? And I really worked hard when I was on the school board to push that information out. Make sure the Republican Party knew, make sure I put it out on my newsletter list, all over my social. We're reviewing these books. Nobody would show up. Nobody ever cared. It was so frustrating to me because as school board members, you can't review 13 years, kindergarten through 12th grade, of science in the window. You just don't have the capacity. You need citizens to just get their eyes on it. It's not that hard. So thank you. Thank you for doing that and taking the time, especially in your field of expertise, biology. If everyone did that, our education system, the quality of content and curriculum going to students would be so much better. So I think that's huge, being on those curriculum committees. Congratulations.
It's very important. I mean, so our school district, I think we spoke about this, briefly before. Our school district in Indian River County went from 37 to 5 in the state. And that's been since Moms for Liberty has been involved, since we've been getting involved with the curriculum committees.
What do you mean it went from 37 to 5?
So as a ranking on ELA scores, English language arts, and math scores, attendance rates, graduation rates, we went from 37, ranked 37. So right in the middle of,
There's 67
right,
counties, so
Florida.
people know in Florida.
And we're now at 5.
It's unbelievable.
It's incredible. And, it's not just Moms for Liberty, obviously. It's the teachers, it's the curriculum, but look how far we've come since we've been an organization now that we're involved in education.
Even teachers, and not just, of course, there's a lot of great teachers, but even teachers that don't agree with us or union leaders, they say, and they know research has proven that when parents are involved, that's the best indicator of student success. So why they've been pushing back on us from day one is, it's ridiculous. It doesn't even make sense. But I love that stat. We probably need to push that out as one of our big wins, because you guys, you're not going to take credit. You're not on in the classroom teaching the curriculum. But if you think about it, you guys have worked, and we can talk about this later, to get school board members in place who then hire the superintendent, who then sets the direction for the district and sets requirements for the district and how things are going to be implemented. And of course, you have to have great teachers in the classroom. But with poor leadership, they can't be successful. And, with you guys having your voice heard at every committee level, that is a huge impact. So what other committees? We've got curriculum, calendar. What else is there?
Code of conduct. That was the biggest one for us. Our code of conduct was a mess when we first started. Again, it was, very few volunteers and parents. It was a lot of educators and administrators. We got rid of all of the restorative circles, the restorative justice, the restorative everything, and said, listen, let's get back to basics. We got metal detectors, implemented in our high school. So we added that to the code of conduct. And discipline, Tina, in our schools they're talking about getting rid of our ALTOS, which is our alternative to in-school suspension, because they're not having that anymore. So for the first time since I've been paying attention,
They're not having what
they're
anymore?
not going to have the ALTOS anymore, which is the alternative.
Why?
If, because they can't fill the room. They don't have students that
What?
can, it's not
So
worthy to have it there anymore.
So people
at that
know
point.
across the country, discipline is a problem in classrooms
Mhm.
everywhere.
Mhm.
Every level of organizations with the teachers unions, even at the national level, they'll all admit that discipline is out of control in the classrooms. And it's one of the reasons a lot of teachers are leaving. They'll say it's teacher pay and other things, but when teachers are afraid of getting punched in the face while teaching math or science, who wants that job? Not them. So what have you guys done in your
Yeah.
district? Like,
Yeah.
what's the difference?
And like you said, that's completely unacceptable, but it was always accepted before, and they would be pushed to ALTOS, or they would give them more chances. So we tightened up the code of conduct. Listen, not having cell phones on in school before it was even a law here in Florida. We implemented that in Indian River County. During instructional hours, you do not have your cell phone out. You get one warning. After that, your cell phone goes to the principal, who I thought governed everything, but the principal, and a parent has to pick it up or sign it out. And if it happens again, you're going to in-school suspension. So really focusing on teaching and learning, and that makes it easier for the teachers. There's been less fights, less vaping, less, sexual episodes in the bathrooms, because they know that they're going to get in trouble if they have their phones out and they're not making those TikTok videos and having that Snapchat, video that, they want to go viral and make them, the important person on campus. So we've really tightened up the code of conduct in that way. So the kids know with the discipline, the parents know with the discipline, we're not going to keep giving you 3, 4, and 5, and 6 chances. No, you're getting one warning, and then you're going to respect your teachers and get back to the teaching and learning that has to happen, which is what kids are there for, education.
So it sounds like districts across the country can look to Indian River County, Florida for the model of improving discipline in schools. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
That's a big win.
I've had superintendents and school board members across the country calling me and asking me, like they'll hear something or they'll see something. Our superintendent was superintendent of the year for Florida. So everybody's calling me saying, what is your policy on this? What does your code of conduct look like? What is your curriculum? What curriculum are you guys using to go from 37 to 5? So it's been amazing that we're not just making an impact in our county where my kids go to public school, we're making an impact across the country. And to me, it's a compliment when somebody calls and says, hey, what are you guys doing? Because what you're doing is working. So for me, that is it's so heartwarming, because I'm like, they want to help their students there, and they're not complaining. They're wanting to make it better and asking, listen, this is working in your district. What can we do to make it better for ours?
So fantastic. And so there's more committees and such, but I think that's a good sampling of some of the committees. And I encourage everyone to go look at what committees are in their district, or talk to a school board member and say, what committees are available? Because school board members often get to appoint 1 or 2 people to these committees. Usually there's some teachers, there's a lot of stakeholders on these committees, but school board members often get to a point. And so building a relationship with your school board members to able to get a seat at that table is very important. Is that how it works in Indian River, that the school board members have appointed some of your members to the?
So some of the committees, that's the case. So like our library book vetting committee, each school board member picks somebody, and then there's a principal, administration staff. So they structured it that way. But all of the other committees, as long as you sign up to volunteer, you'll get the emails and the information to come out, and you can volunteer for whatever you are able to do. So if you wanted to volunteer for the community, standards and looking at curriculum, you could just sign up for like K1, science, and just review a couple of those books and give your feedback. Right.
Yeah.
So, or you could, take 3 or 4 of the different contenders and read those books and then give feedback on that. And that's what, the teachers are doing, for their levels, for what they're teaching. And it's nice to get, parental feedback or community member feedback, because they may know the standards better, obviously, because they're the experts, right? But when you're looking at some of the other stuff and say, no, this doesn't make sense. Or what about an alternative view? Like, where is, if we're going to teach children critical thinking, where are both, opposing viewpoints influence on this.
Yeah. So I just want to take a moment and do like an all call. We want you to be part of Moms for Liberty. We want everyone to join Moms for Liberty, join your local chapter, be a national member, start a chapter. There's so many options with Moms for Liberty. But if it's not your thing to be a joiner and you live in a community where there's a school district. Everybody watching right now lives in a community where there's a school district. The curriculum needs to be reviewed. There are dozens of committees you can sit on, volunteer for, get yourself appointed to, get off your comfy couch and get out there and support the future of this country by being involved in the education system. I don't care if you're a homeschool advocate, a charter school advocate, a private school advocate. I don't care if you don't have any kids, if you have 100 kids, there is a role for you at your school district to take part. And so I want to encourage everybody to do that. And I think you have been a star example of that. So all levels of government, a seat at a table at all levels of government. And so let's talk a little bit about the state level, because you've also pulled up yourself a seat there at the state level. And what does that look like for you?
Yeah, so our state representative, our senator, and our rep are Moms for Liberty members, which is awesome. We have a great open line of communication.
Hold on, back up. You said that way too fast, because that's
I want to say it 5 more times.
That's no small feat.
Yeah.
Say that again, slower.
Our senator, Aaron Grawl.
Your state senator.
Yep. And Robbie Brackett, our House representative.
State House.
Yep. Are Moms for Liberty members and very active with our chapter and helping us with legislation at the state level. Aaron Grawl, along with
the
Patty.
Parents' Bill of Rights.
Yep, she created the Parents' Bill of Rights with Patty, just having one little sentence and made it. So many good things. I'm so proud of my county. I love my county. It's where I work. It's where my kids were born. This is where we may need a tissue. Where I was married. I moved to Indian River County right after high school to start nursing school and start working at the hospital. And that's my home. So many good things have come out of Indian River County. And, the Parental Bill of Rights, again, so many people have taken that verbiage and used it across the country. And that came from Indian River County. It came from a citizen who brought it to the House rep at the time, who's now our senator. And they all support Moms for Liberty. They're all Moms for Liberty members. And I could call my senator or my House rep and say, listen, we need to work on this legislation, or I'll go speak at the delegation meeting annually. If people don't know about that, you can speak as a private citizen or as an organization and tell them, listen, this is what our community needs, right? Mm-hmm. So we've had so much legislation that has come from Robbie and Aaron for the state, because they've championed these things for parental rights and, curriculum and library books and all of these amazing things. And I'm so proud to be a part of it at the ground level and just helping them and supporting them and working with them to get this done, because it doesn't matter. I don't have to be an elected official to get this done. Just like Patty didn't have to be an elected official to come up with that one line to bring to her House rep to make a law that's being used now across the country. So.
And it's used in Moms for Liberty's terminology. And so just a little historical perspective here. I don't know Robbie, but I do know Senator Grawl, and it's because she originally sponsored the Parents' Bill of Rights. And I didn't know Patty until we started Moms for Liberty. And then, Patty got brought into this. But Senator Grawl, who was then House Rep Grawl, had sponsored that original Parents' Bill of Rights. And I was on the school board then. And I ran in 2016 on parental rights, which wasn't really anything. I was kind of a made up phrase at that point. And but when I heard there was a Parents' Bill of Rights, I got really excited. I was part of a conservative school board coalition, and we supported it, and it went nowhere. And then she sponsored it again, and as a conservative school board coalition, we're making this happen this time. And it got through the House. It got through the Senate. No, it got through the House, and it died in the Senate at the last day, at the last minute. And I was so mad. And I say this because I love Senator Grawl and what she's doing. Love that she championed that. Now, Patty was behind that. But I'm going to go ahead and say that Moms for Liberty helped tremendously to get that the third year across the finish line. When there was grassroots activists across the state, that was our first in any state, in anywhere, state level activism we ever did. So we started as Moms for Liberty grassroots, school board meetings and such. But that was when, hey, can we do an all call to all of our chapters around Florida? And I don't know how many we had at the time, probably 15 or 20. And I remember making the graphic and sharing it with everyone. Call your representative, call your senator. And Tiffany and I drove to Tallahassee and spoke at Patty's press conference she had out there. And that was the year that it passed both House, Senate, and got signed into law. And so it really takes a team of people to make these things move and shake. And so
it does. And that's why when, the haters or the opposition say, oh, you're a minority fringe group or you're not the majority. Well, look at the legislation that we've got passed here just in Florida. Look at how much, I can speak for my county. Indian River County has changed since Moms for Liberty has been an organization. You can't take away those stats. You can't take away those facts, and you can't take away the truth that as a school district, our grades have improved. With our activism in the code of conduct, discipline has improved. You can't take those stats away. So as much as the opposition wants to say that, we're hurting public education or we don't support teachers or whatever it is that they have, thoughts in their own mind, that's not the fact in our county, and that's not the fact in the state of Florida.
So I would point out that a lot of this success that you've had is because you've built relationships with these people, whether it be your senator, your state legislator, your school board, your superintendent. These are all strong relationships that you've built because one of Moms for Liberty's 3 values that we hold dear is building relationships. It's vital in this work. So I love to take a moment to thank our guests when they really espouse one of our core values. So thanks, Jennifer.
Of course. Now, it's so important. We have to work together. I mean, there's only so much that we can do at the ground level grassroots. There's only so much that they can do as, a school board member or a rep. Like it's, federal trumps, state trumps local. So even if we're doing all of the work at the state level and the ground level, I mean, federal, like we saw, with the Biden administration, could undo all of that good. So literally, you have to have a seat at every table. You have to be involved at all levels of government, because you could be working as hard as you can and killing yourself and running into a brick wall at the local level. But if it's not working at the state or federal level, you're just going to keep running into that brick wall until you say enough's enough and, elect the people that, represent, our values.
So we are going to move on into some of the really fun, major, national attacks that you and your chapter have been under. But before we go there, I'm going to do one more thing with the seat at the table, because there's one more state level seat that you went and got a chair and pulled yourself up to. That I think is a good story to tell. So where else did you sit at the state level serving for, I don't know if you still are or you just were for a time being, or how that happened?
Yeah. So with legislation, they legislated that there had to be a committee made to legislate what is going to happen with library books and curriculum vetting, because it had never been done before at the state level. So they had, I believe it was 12 or 14 certified media center specialists, which is that's what they did. They were media center specialists in schools across the state.
So for those that don't know, media specialists are actually librarians. They did away with the word librarian sometime, some way, and nobody really understands why, other than, changing the words, changing the culture. And I hate that. It should be a librarian. So
I agree.
You got 12. We're going to call them librarians on the Fire of Liberty show.
We can say that.
12 librarians.
12 librarians. And then there was 3 parents. So again, it was Michelle from Brevard, Jamie, I believe she's in Lee County, and then myself. So never served on a statewide committee before, ever, had no idea what I had signed up for. But I said, you know what? I'm really passionate about this issue. They call me the PhD in porn across the country.
Don't say that.
And it's not because of the adult way. It's because I am, unfortunately, my superpower, one of them is being an encyclopedia of knowing what's in these books and authors. And, it's a sad but true thing. I mean, Thomas said it one day, and I probably laughed for 5 minutes straight. And I said, I'm going to use that.
You have a PhD in porn. And it's, we joke about it, but I have, when the porn book debate was really hot, probably 23, I think 23, 24 it was a much stronger debate of what was happening. Press would call, or, we were about to go do a press story or a press interview, and they would list 2 or 3 books and say, your district, your chapter, and wherever is really mad about this book, and we don't see what the problem is. And my quickest way to know what the problem with the book was to text you.
PhD in porn.
Was to text Miss PhD in porn, because you would say, oh, Tina, that's page 73. Let me send you some screenshots. Here's the text passages, but you'd always warn me too, like it's pretty bad. Like prepare yourself before you read this, before you look at this. And I just time and time again, I'd come back to you and say, what grade level, where is this shown up? And you would tell me. Often you would know like how many copies were in your district, in what schools. And so to say you had a PhD in porn is kind of a flip thing, but my goodness, the work.
And it happened all across the country, Tina.
Yeah.
Literally, somebody would see me on USA Today or Fox or CNN, anywhere. I never turned down an interview. So even if I knew it was going to be ugly and they were probably going to do an extreme close-up of a horrible picture of me and say that, I'm anti-LGBTQ or anti-African-American or I'm a Nazi, I would do that interview because, again, our organization and my morals and values is rooted in facts, stats, and the truth. So if I had to get up there and talk about it, somebody would send me a page via text and say, hey, what book is this from? And I would literally, it's this book by this author. And, we don't have a list with Moms for Liberty of books that we've had removed, but people have done book reports across the country. So why not utilize that information that people have already done the work and use that as a reference when people ask? So
right, go and educate yourself. I think that's important. Right. You just said Moms for Liberty doesn't keep a list. And I would like everybody to know that because I can't tell you how many emails we get to info@momsforliberty.org. Send us your book list, send us your band list, send us this. Honestly, I usually delete them. Just like I manage that info account. I don't know why I still do. I want to see them all that come in. And honestly, I delete them often because it's ridiculous. We don't have a list. Right. We're not out to ban books, but citizens like Jennifer Pippin, volunteers, have serious concerns, legitimate serious concerns about some of these things and have decided to read up and educate yourself. And these other tools and resources that are out there that you or others look to, thank goodness they're doing their reviews. You educate yourself. You could read it. You've got a brain. You may agree with their evaluation and their review or not. Who doesn't read an Amazon review before you purchase something? Like, what is the problem here? Right. It doesn't make any sense.
Right. And anybody in the country, Tina, could look at one of these reviews, these book reviews. I mean, there's probably a couple hundred lists from across the country, right? And say, okay, on page 37, such and such act is going on. They could purchase the book. They can, buy the book on Kindle and verify that passage. So now they say, oh, it's out of context. No, rape is rape. Incest is incest. Bestiality. I mean, we had a book recently we had removed. It didn't get any press because nobody's talking about it anymore. It had a 10-year-old who slept with her uncle and she got pregnant. That just got removed from one of our high schools. So again, it may be a great storyline, or it may say, hey, this does happen, but the way that it was described in graphic detail, it's not appropriate and it's not to the standards of Florida schools. So, being on this committee opened my eyes because all of these, librarians were saying that, children need to see themselves in these books, or this does happen to children, or, things like that. And I said, no, like, this is not the way that children learn about these things. Parents or guardians need to talk to their children about these sensitive topics if they even want to, right? Their child may not be able to, talk to about that until maybe they're senior high school or junior year. It depends. Every child's different, right? And so during that, I was on the task of creating a reel and a slideshow presentation of, books that had been removed in my school district and how it broke, certain laws. And I went to send that reel as well as Michelle.
Oh, I forgot about this. I forgot about this.
They got blocked. The firewall blocked them to the Department of Education.
Okay, so hold on. So the Department of Education asked you as part of this committee to put together this presentation of things that were in public schools in Indian River County in Florida. You email, I just want to go slow here.
Cited information. So cited pictures, cited text.
You email the stuff that's found in the school district to the Florida Department of Education. Yes. And what happened?
It got blocked. The firewall blocked it and said it was blocked
the file
for sexual.
Was too big?
No, it was sexual conduct and anything. So if we were to send pornographic images or anything like that to elected officials, they get blocked. So myself and Michelle had to send the Department of Education to their personal emails, not their Department of Education emails, these reels and Google slideshows that we made. And then they went to send them to the librarians' school addresses, and they got blocked through the firewalls because you cannot send sexually explicit content to librarians on their school emails. So then they had to send all of those files to their personal emails. So literally bypass the Department of Education email addresses, bypass their librarian email addresses, and everything had to go to their personal email addresses for us to be able to discuss it in the workshop.
I hope all the haters that are watching right now listen to what you're saying, because it's absurd. It's beyond reason to expect. And some of these books are in elementary school, middle school, which is up to 12 and 13-year-olds. Obviously, some are in high school. But there's some young kids being exposed to this garbage in schools and how they have attacked you and come after you. And we're going to talk about that after our break here in 1 second, because you've been attacked probably. I know some of our chapter chairs have had some pretty bad attacks, but you've had almost 5 years of attacks, all different types of cancellation and things that you've endured. And we're going to talk a little bit about that and how you've overcome and dealt with it in a joyful way after we come back. But first, we're going to talk to you at home and take 1 minute to talk to you about our national summit, which is coming up in 79 days. Can you believe that?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
gracious.
It's here in the state of Florida this year. We're back to our home base in Orlando at the Gaylord, October 16th through the 19th. We have all the invitations out. Well, most of the invitations out for speakers. We've invited phenomenal people. In past years, we've had President Trump and Governor DeSantis and Tulsi Gabbard and Dennis Prager. We've had amazing Glenn Beck last year. And so not going to tell you yet who we have this year, but it's getting to be exciting. We're going to break for 1 minute, show you this video about Summit. So hopefully you'll get your tickets, and we'll come back and talk to Jennifer Pippin, chapter chair in Indian River County, Florida, about the attacks and maybe a story about the Grinch at Christmas.
Elena, what state are you from?
New York.
Hawaii.
I'm from Texas, Washington. I have my kids actually with me to do the march.
Wherever I go, odds are there is a Moms for Liberty group or a whole tribe in the room sounding off loud and proud.
And you could see the passion here because it's about supporting kids.
Pledge to each other that we will live like men and women who are determined to remain free.
I'm for parental rights all the way.
Welcome back to the Fire of Liberty Show. I'm Tina Descovich. I'm the host of the Fire of Liberty Show. I'm CEO and co-founder of Moms for Liberty. Today we have Jennifer Pippin. She is the OG chapter chair from Indian River County, Florida. She is our award winner of our Abigail Adams Award. Was that last year or the year before?
2023.
2023 in Philadelphia. She won our Abigail Adams Award for Public Policy. If you've been following for the last half hour or so this episode, you will know why. Her activism at the state level, which grew out of her activism at the local level, which grew out of just being a mom who didn't even know if school boards existed. It's an amazing story. But now we are going to dip in a little bit to the attacks that you've been under, the threats that you've had, the cancellations that you've experienced, how you've dealt with them, how you've overcome them, and your joyful warrior spirit, I would say, through all of them. So let's talk about Marshman.
Oh, goodness.
You don't have to say his name.
Yeah.
I think everybody in Indian River knows who I'm talking about right now, and the rest of the country can just picture what a Marshman looks like.
I think of like swamp people,
Yeah,
you can come out in
It's
camo
fitting.
ghillie suit,
It's fitting.
right?
It's kind of fitting. So what's that experience? I don't know how much you want to say about it. but-
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, the personal attacks have been since day one. So I know, again, nobody wants to go back to COVID, but getting screamed at, my body, my choice. Well, what happened with the masks and the vaccines and that demographics? So it is, it started with that, and I was never political. Like for me, this was never political, and we can dive into that whenever you're ready. But so when you had, activists who, just wanted to steal the spotlight or had a shirt, that had our faces on it or our faces in jail cells on it, or
Your face on a
my
t-shirt?
face. Oh, multiple t-shirts.
I didn't know that.
Multiple t-shirts. Yeah. My husband was on one, never my children.
Oh, that's
But
so nice.
yes,
They protect your kids.
never my children.
And
Watch after this, there'll be.
Were there multiple t-shirts, like people in these shirts, or is this just
Oh,
one person?
multiple people. There was multiple people
Wearing
that came
shirts
to
with
school
your
board. Yes,
name.
with my name on it, or my picture on it, or hateful things to me that they would say like online and then put it on a t-shirt because I thought it was funny, right?
So you're sitting at a school board meeting and people walk in with your face in jail on their shirts.
Yep.
And how do you respond?
I usually laugh because I'm like, wow, the amount of money and time that they spent on that to try to get me to not stand up and to not, say my speech that I worked so
Your
hard
principles
on.
are a little bit bigger than a t-shirt,
Exactly.
right?
So, usually somebody will screenshot it for me or take a picture and then send it to me, or they'll see it, if they're not at the meeting, and send it to me and say, hey, your face and your name's on another shirt. I'm like, well, I guess they really like me, or they'll make fun of Moms for Liberty or something like that, And at first, honestly, Tina, it really bothered me. Like, it really bothered me because I'm like, why can't we just have a hard conversation? Why can't everybody just like me and we can just agree to disagree? Because there is so many people that, I disagree with 150%, but I'm always kind to them. I'm always respectful to them. And I will block you on Facebook if you are trolling my page and making fun of my family or disrespecting me, because I don't stand for that. That's my personal page. I'm not an elected official. So in the beginning, I was like, no, like, I'm really going to try to talk to you online and try to sort things out. And I realized, no.
That was naive, Jennifer.
Right. Very naive. And that was me. That was naive because I'm thinking, listen, we can talk about, I'll have a hard conversation with anybody. I'll sit down with somebody who absolutely hates me at Panera and have a coffee and let's talk about it. And at the end of the day, if our conversation, we agree to disagree, at least we had that dialogue. Right.
Yeah.
So so, I had people, stalking my children's TikToks, their Snapchats. They were taking, screenshots of videos that they made during COVID. I was in a lot of videos with them during COVID because that was something fun to do. We'd be at our house, dancing to the latest TikTok trend. And I had no idea what I was doing. And my daughter say, hey, you do this and dance around and I do this. And that was showing up on people's reels. And, my kids, my minor children, they were making fun of them. They were calling them names. They were saying that, I was a horrible mom.
How'd
they
you
were horrible
respond to
kids.
that? Because that's a whole nother level. Like putting your face on a jail cell shirt, fine.
Right.
Calling
It's me.
you all the names we get called, fine. But how did you deal with them attacking your children?
So when they attacked my husband and my children, that's my why. That's my life. That's who I live for and breathe for. A lot of them, honestly, Tina, I got cease and desist against them for that because it rises to a level of, having to protect my family. I have restraining orders against people in my county. And again, there was enough evidence that I brought of them. I've had people say, very untrue things about me and my family, and it rose to the level of a crime to where I could have a restraining order. And I absolutely did that to protect my family because people are crazy enough to show up at your house. I have the best camera system at my house. I believe into a 110%. Hopefully that would never have to happen. But I am going to take all legal action to protect my family because why do this if they're not here? Or why do this if they get drugged through the mud or it affects their education or their, sports and organizations and things like that. So even there was someone who disagreed with me. My daughter she did 4-H. She's graduated now. She did 4-H and they almost weren't going to let her show because I was at a school board meeting. My husband was out of town for work and I had, my brother-in-law go with my daughter to a fair meeting. It was a mandatory fair meeting. And they tried to kick her off of being in the fair because a parent or guardian didn't accompany her to that meeting. But there was 20, 30 other people who an uncle took them or
they were looking,
an older brother
for a
took
reason.
them. Right, exactly. So I had to pay to have a hearing to go and tell them, listen, I'm at a school board meeting. My husband was, they made me provide documentation, YouTube, that I spoke at the meeting. They made me provide my husband's plane ticket to show that he really was out of town. All of this documentation, and all they were doing is trying to do a money grab and get and this is my daughter's senior year of high school. She almost wasn't allowed to show her final year when you can win all of the awards and it's so much fun and it's an emotional time, just because I was a member of Moms for Liberty. And that same couple, so as a husband and wife, we paid to sponsor at the fair. Well, when you pay out of your, or out of our chapter, our chapter dues paid for us to have, they would not put a Moms for Liberty sign up in the barn. But by the time we could object to it and say, listen, like, we paid, like, you cashed our check, they would not allow us to have a sign up in the barn. So it's just been these constant things.
So why do you keep going? Because you are our longest standing chair in Moms for Liberty right now. You've been with us from the beginning. You've had remarkable wins and some remarkable losses. Why, with all this attacks, threats, restraining orders, do you keep going?
My kids, my kids are the number one thing. So when I started this, my daughter was in 8th grade, or excuse me, my daughter was in 8th grade. My son was in 5th. They both missed their graduations because of COVID. And I'm like, I have to make this better for them. And then as more layers of the onion unpeeled, and I said, you know what, I need to do more. I can do more. I can, I don't have any hobbies. I don't play tennis. I don't, play golf. I don't do all these things. Like, I'm literally reading curriculum. I'm literally reading books. I'm looking at policies. I'm looking to see when our next school board meeting is. Like, I'm looking at all this stuff to make it better. And it was for my kids. And now it's mushroomed into for the state or for the country or for the next person that picks up the phone and calls me and says, hey, I need help, whether it's one of our people or a superintendent or school board member in another state. I know that we can make a difference.
You are the reason that we can have a citizen government. You and people like you and people that are willing to do the work that you're doing. We in America can't be lazy citizens. Otherwise, we won't have our form of government any longer. So again, second time in this interview, I'm going to thank you, Jennifer, for not playing tennis, because there's nothing wrong with playing tennis, but for skipping tennis and doing the hard work that it takes to save our country. And I'm not being melodramatic when I say that. In this area of like threats and attacks, there is one, because the way you dealt with it was so fantastic, I want to talk about, and it has to do with being the Grinch at Christmas. Tell us about that story.
So that was the first time that we were ever turned down. So it was December of 2021. We had just become an organization, weren't even a year old. And we petitioned the Chamber of Commerce to put a float in the parade. And you have to write down everything that you're going to do and how big your float is. And is it a truck pulling it? Is it a tractor pulling it? Like, it could be anything in Florida, right? So I literally said, we're going to do Liberty Christmas. So beautiful.
Yes, what a great idea.
Yes. So we got a costume of the Liberty, Lady Liberty, Statue of Liberty. We were going to have somebody, and then we're going to do all red, white, and blue and just make it beautiful. And I'm like, this will be great. This will be awesome. We ordered everything for it. We sent in our payment, all that fun stuff. Well, the minority of liberals, sent all the Chamber of Commerce, they worship Hitler. They are, anti-LGBTQ. They're anti-African-American. They're anti. And they ended up canceling our float. So they refunded our money. They called us and said, we're not accepting our application.
The Chamber of Commerce
to the woke mob
in Indian River County caved to the woke mob and canceled the Moms for Liberty chapter's beautiful patriotic float.
Who doesn't love the Statue of Liberty in red, white, and blue? And we were going to have kids in their pajamas there reading books. Like, it was so organic and it was so cute. Like, our chapter literally spent a lot of time figuring out what we were going to do, how we were going to do it. We bought all the stuff for it. We were excited. And then our next meeting, everybody was crushed.
That's what I was going to say. What was the response? I know what you ultimately did, but at first, were you mad? What were you going to do? You talked to your chapter. What did they want to do? Were you considering like suing? How did that unfold?
So at first, me personally, I was really mad because I said, how can you do this? Like, literally, we're a nonprofit. We're legit. We have an EIN number with IRS. Like, we're a nonprofit. We have everything, set up. I was very transparent in what our float was going to be. And I thought, who could not love the idea of what our chapter has voted to do, right? So, and then I was sad. And I was sad because I'm thinking, okay, all those kids that were going to be on the float, now they have to find something else, or they're going to have to sit and watch. Like, so I was really sad. And then I said, you know what, I have to do something. So again, I'm going back to my.
Did you tell your husband again?
So
I'm going to do something here, babe.
Well, he kind of found out when the Grinch costume came via Amazon in the mail, and I put it on just to make sure it fit because I'm not very tall.
How did you get the idea? Like, where my brain would have never made this connection. So where did that?
So I, having a seat at the table, right? I said, I'm going to have a seat at this table. I'm going to be representing Moms for Liberty at some fashion in this
parade somehow.
Yes,
do I make that happen?
And part of me thought I was going to wear Moms for Liberty attire, like, wear the navy blue shirt, and I'm wearing a Grinch dress now, navy blue shirt, and maybe get on somebody's, float. And it took me about a week to realize, like, I have to do something. So I'm like, the Grinch, everybody loves the Grinch. It's hilarious. It'll be a great costume. Nobody will know it's me under there. So I literally bought the Grinch costume, got delivered on Amazon, it fit actually pretty well because I'm short. I was worried about that. And I said, okay, so now how can I incorporate Moms for Liberty into my Grinch costume? Because this fits great now. Like, this is perfect. And so I got a Moms for Liberty t-shirt, but it went like way down. So it covered like the Grinch's belt, and it covered like everything. So I literally made like a crop top out of the Grinch outfit, and you were able to see the Moms for Liberty. And this was during COVID. So all of the floats were not able to pass out candy. You couldn't pass out literature. You couldn't pass out anything. Nobody could touch anybody. COVID times, right? Yeah. So I said, okay, how can I be different? How can I make an impact on the community, right? So our chapter, we returned some of our Christmas decorations that we were going to use on the float. And we bought, I think it was like 3,000 or 4,000 little candy canes individually wrapped. And so I went down one side. So everybody's waiting for the parade to happen. And, that's when kids are getting irritated. It's hot. It's, it's not snowing.
It's a Christmas parade. How could it be hot?
Welcome to Florida. It was so hot. I was sweating under this thing so bad because I had my regular clothes. I had my Grinch clothes. I had my Moms for Liberty rolled up crop top. And
so committed. I love it.
I was like, I got to do this. So I walked down one side and passed out candy canes to the elderly, the veterans. I was holding babies. I was taking pictures with everybody. Everybody got candy canes. And then I started walking back. Now, halfway back, I did run out of candy canes. But I said, you know what? I'm just going to throw this bag away. And I was taking pictures with everybody. I was all over the news. I was all over every publication, had me taking pictures with elected officials and babies and veterans. And literally my Grinch picture, because I was the only Grinch, I was the only one in a Moms for Liberty shirt. It was people's profiles pictures for probably up until Christmas with their kids and their parents and family pictures. And it was so cool because my inbox never stopped of texts and private messages and our Facebook page of the Grinch with all of these people in our community. We got more exposure and we had more people join our chapter than we probably would have been one of those 76 floats in the parade.
And there's two things we say at Moms for Liberty. One is that we're joyful warriors. And I just can't think of a more, it's funny because it's the Grinch who's grouchy, right? But I can't think of a more joyful warrior way of addressing being canceled than what you did there. Like,
it was so fun. It was so fun. I was so sweaty and hot and about to pass out. And then as soon as the parade started, I just drifted off because I'm like, you know what? This was fun. This was impactful. And then you just saw our membership go up. Literally, somebody tried to join our chapter and said, you took a picture, or somebody took a picture with my 3-year-old. I want to join. Like, so it was so impactful. And we had another one say, you were the only one that gave my daughter a candy cane. I want to join. So it was just that little, interaction with people, with giving them a candy cane because nobody was doing that, giving them a hug, a high five, knuckles, and just being a person, like, even though I was a Grinch, but being a person in that sea of people.
So I love that story so much. I'll never forget first seeing those pictures. And I'm like, what is going on here? Why is there a Grinch with a Moms for Liberty shirt? And did she cut the shirt? Right. Everybody knows that I'm the keeper of the brand around here. And I'm like, did she make our shirt into a crop top?
I still have the shirt.
No, it's fantastic. It was great. The photos were so bright and vivid and beautiful, really expressing what you did that day. And so just a great story. I'm going to take us in another direction right now after all this joy we've been sharing, because there's one specific national story that the whole organization of Moms for Liberty is kind of carrying around to this day. I would say the haters in our comments represent not as much as they used to, but it's about the Diary of Anne Frank. And this stems from your chapter. And I think now is a great time to set the record straight, because there are folks out there that say that Moms for Liberty bans the Diary of Anne Frank. And that is a very serious topic. It's something we take very seriously at Moms for Liberty. And I will open this conversation by just looking into the camera and saying Moms for Liberty has not and does not support banning the Diary of Anne Frank. Period. End of story. But I think this is a good time to explain a little bit about where that story stems from. And it stemmed from Indian River County, Florida. So if you can take us through the journey of what happened with the Diary of Anne Frank in Indian River County.
Sure, absolutely. So, and I'm going to go off that a little bit more. Moms for Liberty doesn't ban any books. Make the book. You've made a book. Tiffany made a book. We've had chapter chairs who've made books. Absolutely. Make the book.
Write the book, publish the book, sell the book, put it on Amazon, put it in the public library down the street.
Right.
But when it comes to public schools where parents don't have an opportunity to help their children select the books in the public school library should be for education.
Right. They need to be curated. We don't put every single book in a K-12 public library. It just doesn't happen. We don't have the capacity to do it. And again, like with Indian River County, look how much our grades have gone up because they're reading better books. Our libraries were completely gutted. They were like the 70s libraries, and now they're techie, and they have, all of the books have been vetted, and children are actually going to the libraries now in Indian River County where they never did before. They're using, they have big screens up. They're taking classrooms in there. They're going in there and actually getting on their laptops and reading books or getting books on, like the Kindle or whatever there. So again, we want children to read. They have to read good material. We only have them young for so long. So it's so important, which is why with this book, so this is the Anne Frank Diary, the graphic adaptation. So this is not the Diary of Anne Frank. Okay. Again, the Diary of Anne Frank needs to be age appropriate. You're not going to let the high school version, you're not going to let a kindergartner read that version of the Anne Frank Diary, right? So even in this book, so this was one book in one high school. That's what this national headline was about.
And so
literally.
When people, just the average person thinks about the Diary of Anne Frank, I think there's only one copy. I read it in high school. I remember reading it. And so if I think about the Diary of Anne Frank, that's the Diary of Anne Frank. What you're saying is there are many, many versions of the Diary of Anne Frank.
There are. So before I personally challenged this through Moms for Liberty with our district, I looked and saw we had 300 copies of the Diary of Anne Frank. And again, age appropriate. So the elementary version didn't get into the talks about her sexuality when she started going through puberty. And, she was going to publish a version, that didn't include all of that. And then, her father published the version, after she passed. And then they come out with these graphic adaptations and everything like that. So her original diary.
What is a graphic adaptation? I think most people have no idea what that means.
Sure. So it is the author's way of how they would portray the book. So like with this one here by these two authors.
Hold on one second. Amy over there, can you guys see the book in the shot? You can now if you're holding it up.
Okay.
I don't know if you're going to show pages. I don't really know.
Well, I'm just going to read from one little blurb in the back. Yeah. So again, so Indian River County, we had the elementary version, the middle school version, and her true diary in our high schools. So it was her true diary that was published by her father. And, according to statute, Holocaust has to be taught, right, in Florida statute. So does the Anne Frank true diary. This graphic adaptation is not part of the standard, right? So as I researched, I'm like, well, why is this one here? Because it's literally all picture book. And this is just the author's version of what they took out of the book. So as I'm reading the book, I read this book cover to cover.
Adaptation is mostly pictures.
Mostly pictures. Yeah. So if you look at this book, This
Oh
is
yeah. Let's make sure we can see that.
Yeah,
Can you
so
see that
let
on the
me-
screen? You
yeah.
don't have to see the exact pictures, but you get the
Right.
idea. It's a Anne Frank Diaries picture book,
Picture book.
basically, but there's not any actual photographs. I've seen
No.
photographs online of Anne and
There's-
her sister on the beach, but
Right.
that's not what this is. This is
Right.
cartoon drawings.
And the
I've
whole
actually never seen this.
the whole book is like this. So this is
Okay.
in high school. So this isn't age appropriate, right? So we don't need cartoon picture books in a high school. So that was the first thing. And I'm thinking, okay, well, that doesn't rise to the level to remove the book, right? So what was removed and why it was removed is because what the author says, I'm looking at the adapter's note on page 148, because we're about facts, right? He literally says, how could I edit the book? The trickiest task then would have to retain only a portion of Anne's original diary while still being faithful to the entire work. Not the entire diary entries could be included in this adaptation.
So there's
this book-
nothing in that book that is from her diary. Is that what that means?
Some of it is. It's not the full Anne Frank diary.
Okay.
So if we're going to teach children the truth about the Holocaust and the Anne Frank diary, they need to read the actual diary, not an adaptation. And then when you read further into it, if you look on like Amazon and things like that, it says this graphic adaptation was less than 5% of the true diary of Anne Frank.
I want you to say that again and slower,
Sure.
because I'm just going to recap for people that are watching. Moms for Liberty has been accused of trying to get rid of the Diary of Anne Frank. That story is based out of Indian River County, where Jennifer Pippin is the chapter chair. She has with her right now a graphic adaptation, which looks like it's 75% pictures. Where the author says, it's only a portion of the true story of Anne Frank. It's mostly just cartoon drawings. And so you saw that, you read that, and what happened after that?
So when I initially challenged the book, I challenged it with the principal because at that time they were changing the policy through the school district. We were in the middle of our statewide library session, creating this, basically blueprint that the whole, country or the whole state was going to use. And so I challenged it with the principal, and he said, absolutely, they need to be reading the true diary of Anne Frank. I accept
Which
that.
your district has 300 copies of.
Correct.
So,
Yes.
Let's just jump for a second. How many copies today does your school district have of the actual diary of Anne Frank?
They removed 2 because of water damage, so they have 298 now.
I love that you know that.
Yes.
So Indian River County, Florida, the district that's accused of getting rid of the Diary of Anne Frank has 298 copies of the Diary of Anne Frank right now on the shelves.
Yep.
Finished with the story of this graphic picture book, cartoon drawing of Anne Frank's diary.
Right. So the principal agreed to remove it. And then next thing I know, my phone is blowing up. I'm getting calls from CNN, ABC, every news outlet that you can think of saying, why are you banning the diary of Anne Frank in Indian River County schools? And I always told them, and I sent all the pictures. So I sent the screenshots, because I'm all about facts and the truth, right? I would send the screenshot that showed in our library catalog how many books of the true diary of Anne Frank we had. I would send them the pictures of this. And I told everybody it was one book in one school. And the principal agreed that this was not appropriate when we had the true diary of Anne Frank, which is what children need to learn and need to read in his school. Like, he governs the school. So then, of course, the superintendent and the curriculum and instruction department are getting public records requested, which anybody can do. It's public. They're getting calls for media and things like that. So it blew up into this national thing that, Indian River County, school board and the schools agreed to remove this, and they're Nazis. They hate Jews and all of these things. And literally, my godmother is Jewish. Like, I love everybody unless you're a horrible person. And this really hit home because my phone didn't stop ringing for 2 weeks. And then it continued on because other people would, find out.
Didn't the district reach out to a local organization?
They did. So after they were getting all that backlash, they said, you know what? They reached out to, it's called the Community One Initiative, and they deal only in Holocaust teachings. And they brought them the book because they still had the possession of the book. And they looked at it, and they had a private meeting. And even the Community One Initiative said, yes, this is not appropriate. It's less than 5% of the diary. And do you guys have the Anne Frank diary in your schools? They're like, yes, Jennifer Pippin told us that there's 300 copies at that time. And they verified that. And they had the actual diary at this meeting as well to show, well, is this one appropriate? Is this the true diary? And they said, yeah, absolutely. This one, could go. And, it's not age appropriate for high school because it's a cartoon picture book. And if children are choosing between the true Anne Frank diary or the graphic adaptation that's cartoon images, we want our high schoolers reading the true book.
Amen, sister.
Yeah.
I think, it's a beautiful story, that whole process, what happened, focusing on the truth, which also, we talked about our Moms for Liberty values. We have 3 values at Moms for Liberty. We stand for truth, which you have brought up the word truth several times here. Thank you for standing for truth. We build relationships, which you have built endless relationships over the last 5 years. And the last one is we empower others. And you have empowered your entire team, your entire chapter to have a seat at every table, at every level of government. And so you just espouse, you radiate Moms for Liberty. And it's an honor to have you as part of Moms for Liberty. I just want to kind of close out with one little last segment about your chapter, because so many of our chapter chairs, and this segment is mostly for you, are struggling. Some of them have been around 4 years, 3 years, even 2 years of this work is exhausting. Some are brand new. And it's not like it was. You remember that, our very first meeting here in Brevard, we probably had 100 people in there. And, meetings afterwards, you've had meetings where there a couple hundred have shown up, and you've had meetings where 5 have shown up. You continue, and to my knowledge, having your monthly in-person meetings. You continue to stay engaged and active. You continue to be the chapter chair. How do you do it? Any tips, any suggestions, any ideas for them that are struggling with only 5 people showing up?
Right. So I'm going to be honest, sometimes it's harder than other times. But with our organization, it's very issue driven. So if there's no issues and everything's good and looking good, you're going to have less people show up because everything's good.
But hold on, you live in Florida. We've got Governor DeSantis. Aaron Grawl's gotten a bazillion laws passed. You're on every committee in your district. So, if anybody should have a chapter that's worked itself out of being a chapter, it's you. But here you are, still hanging in there. So what's happening? What are you doing to keep people engaged?
Yeah. So like anything, Tina, like in a relationship, you always try to make it better, right? At work, you always try to be a better employee, a better boss, like whatever, In activism, you always try to be better. With your children, you always try to be better. And that's what this is with this organization too. Education is not perfect. It never will be perfect. So you can sit on the couch, like we say, and do nothing and just let the chapter go by, or you can get involved and make it better. And again, I keep coming back to where we were 37 in the state. Now we're 5. And I have to give a shout out to our parents, grandparents, and community members who have been with us, from the beginning, or if they've just joined, or, when, culture war issues come up like Title IX, we had a ton of people join. Both ends of the aisle were nonpartisan. We had a couple Democrats join. They told me, hey, I'm a Democrat, but I don't want boys in my girls' restrooms. So people say, oh, you're nonpartisan, you have Republican roots. No, we have, I could tell you, at least 2, because I don't check, at least 2 Democrats in our chapter. And again, every time something comes up, it activates people. Or if they have a problem and they come to us and say, hey, did you know this was going on? They join our chapter, right? Or, hey, this issue has come about. Or we have teachers who'll join and say, hey, I don't want to lose my job, but this is what's happening. So we've seen so much of that over the past couple of years. And of course, the opposition says, we're not doing anything. And, we have the majority of the media against us in New River County. And it's about to ramp up again because we're about to get into, electing new school board members. We have 3 seats up next year. So, but how I try to keep people engaged, and I try to keep engaged myself, is everybody has a different skill set, and you have to see what they want to do or how much they want to get involved. It may just be someone who wants to pay attention during a call to action. Like they'll send an email or they'll make a call, local or state or federal, whatever. Or you have someone who wants to come and speak at the school board meeting because they're passionate about something, or get somebody on that committee that, hey, I had a problem with this with my son or daughter, and I want to change this, or I think there's a better way. So yes, we've had meetings where there was 5 people at the park. It was hot as all can be out, and it was summer break, and that's okay. Those 5 people that came were amazing, and it was so fun to spend time with their kids, and they came back to the next meeting and they brought somebody or they told somebody about it. And we've had meetings where there's standing room only. So it varies, and it varies with the issues. So after, for example, with the Anne Frank book, we had standing room only because people were asking questions. What happened? How come I'm only seeing in the news that our chapter chair banned the Diary of Anne Frank? With the book issue, we had people come out because they saw the cited evidence, or their child checked out the book to see the passage in it. So it just depends on, how people want to get involved, or what really lights the fire in them to keep them involved. Or, and everybody's busy. Most of our membership works full time. They have families, they have their clubs, activities, sports of kids. I mean, we don't have time to clean the baseboards half the time. So it's hard to keep a chapter going sometimes. But at the end of the day, you have to look at your children. You have to look at your school district and say, listen, these are our future leaders, even if it's just community members without children. These are the people that are going to be taking care of us, in the hospitals, and be our lawyers and be our elected officials. And you have to try to keep those people engaged as much as possible and be transparent. I've found that so many people stay in our chapter, and, there's people from other counties that, want to join our chapter to see what we're doing because we're so transparent in everything that we do.
I would say, if I had to say one thing that your chapter does very well, you do very well. If you send them out, I'm not sure if or somebody else, but I'm on your newsletter list, and you keep people updated via that newsletter. And I would say communication is key. And I tell the other chapters this too. If you can only do a monthly newsletter, fine. If you can do weekly, great. But you need to continually communicate with everyone that's on your list, members, kind of members, people looking at you, because as the issues change, people get engaged. I'm passionate about this. This affects my kid. This affects my neighbor's kid. And so people will ebb and flow and come and go. But if they don't know what's going on, they will never get engaged. And so I think that communication is number one. All right. We are going to wrap this up. You and I could talk for 5 days because all these founding stories are going through my head. You mentioned meeting in the park. That was your first Indian River meeting. I drove down there for it. I remember us passing out Tiffany with the hats on. And I don't think Tiffany took her hat off for like 3 months after that. Like she showed up at everything. She's like, I love the Moms for Liberty hat. And she wore it to everything. I remember the kids. I think we still have a picture of a little girl. I can't think of her mom's name. She did some of our pictures for her, the hat.
Larissa.
Larissa. Yeah. We have so many great stories. Like, I think we should do a full episode one day just on, memories.
The beginning.
Yeah. The beginning story. But today's episode, actually, I'm looking at the clock, has run longer than any episode we've had at
It feels like it's been 10 minutes.
I know, at the Fire of Liberty show. So we're going to wrap it up. Any last words of wisdom or encouragement for new and upcoming leaders or OGs that are just tired?
Right. Well, I first want to say thank you to you for your fearless leadership. It's, we've had some struggle sessions, with external forces, and it's hard. It's hard running, an organization that was only supposed to be in Florida and grew, to nationwide. At least that's what I was told on my first phone call.
Maybe we were just telling you that so you would join.
Well, it works because I'm still here. But I also wanted to say a huge thank you to, my parents, grandparents, and community members in Indian River County, all the chapter chairs across the country, and my Florida chapter chairs, and everybody. We have a really tight bond. We have great relationships. It's turned into friendships, more than just, activism. And of course, my family, my husband, God bless him for putting up with so many times that I'm gone or on the phone or talking about a pornographic or sexually explicit book. He's sick of it. And my kids, they're 19 and 16 now. They've been in this for the past 5.5 years with me. And I told them less when they were younger. I tell them more now that they're older. But it's teamwork that makes this happen. You hear me say that all the time. It's teamwork. It's not just one person. It's not just 5 people. It takes all of us to change the way that education's talked about, because it wasn't talked about a whole lot before. And, go back to the COVID roots. The COVID, opened the door for a lot of people, myself included. And I'm thankful to be part of Moms for Liberty. I'm thankful for being one of the OGs, as much as that's going to irritate people. And I would tell anybody who wants to know information, go on our website, join your local chapter. And if it's not for you, then you can bow out. But I guarantee you there's going to be something in there that's going to spark your interest, or a way that you can, make it better, for your county or state.
I think that is a perfect ending to this episode of the Fire of Liberty show. I'm Tina Descovich, CEO and co-founder of Moms for Liberty. This is Jennifer Pippin, our first chapter chair from Indian River County, Florida. She's been with us for 5 years. She pulls up a seat at every table at all levels of government. She espouses the Moms for Liberty values, and we are extremely grateful for your leadership and your continued support and help in all that you do, even behind the scenes that people don't see. Your courageous leadership for standing up under great fire, Jennifer. We are thankful for you. I hope you guys will join us at momsforliberty.org, join or start a chapter. Please follow the Fire of Liberty show on every outlet. We are on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio. We're on YouTube. We're on Rumble. We are live on X and on Facebook. So pick your poison and give us 5 stars. We want all 5, and we want good, positive comments too. And share this episode with anyone that you think would find it inspiring or needs to hear the true story about the Diary of Anne Frank. Thank you. And until next week at 10 a.m. on Wednesday.